Probably shot down by a Patriot in the U.S. Air Force. Some general somewhere said, you know, enough of this bullshit. Shoot that son of a gun down. And I think that's probably what happened. But we don't even know whether what came down there was an airliner. There are so many unanswered questions, and they have been asked, but nobody has answered them. The commission certainly didn't ask these questions, much less answer them. And Congress isn't asking these questions, and they should be asking the questions and demanding answers.
Right. Again, it shows incredible courage for you to speak out on this issue. You know, everybody in my family was in the Navy. My mother was in the Waves. My dad was in the Navy. My brother was in the Navy. My grandfather was in the Navy. I'm not an anti-military guy, and this is some unpatriotic issue. It's about a government accountability. The nation's been
And I don't think the military did it.
Yeah. No, I'm not. I don't wish to infer that, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, just because there's a war going on, it doesn't mean just because all we see what's on the television. The TV makes you pick a side and root for it, and I was rooting for the neocon side, and I was supposed to unquestionably support the troops. And here it was, Ron Paul was questioning that whole thing, and now he was a patriot. And I just...
Of course, and the best way to support the troops is to bring them home while they're still alive, because they have no business over there in the first place, and all they're doing is making things worse. Like I like to say, you can't win an occupation.
Yeah.
We're fighting the people that live there. And you made an interesting point during the introduction about the breadth of this movement. I still belong to the Democratic Party, although I'm fighting what they're doing, just as several of the other people that were here, John Russell, you know, we were both part of the band of brothers, combat veterans running for Congress, and none of it, there was a dozen of us in the state of Florida alone. Not one of us got a dime because we were all against the war, because we knew what was going on and we knew it was wrong. But, you know, my heroes in Congress are Ron Paul, a Republican, and Dennis Kucinich, a Democrat. They exemplify wanting to follow the Constitution, honor the truth, and serve the people. They come up with totally different answers about how to do it. Some of their economic positions are poles apart. And yet, there is one when it comes to being against the corporate wars of aggression that we're fighting, and as one in wanting to undo the damage to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, which has been done through the Patriot Act and the Military Commissions Act and Presidential Directives 20 and 51 and all the rest of that garbage that the neocons thrust upon us. And so political party doesn't matter anymore. It's us handful of patriots who are of all parties and none whatsoever against the vast majority who are owned lock, stock, and barrel by the Bilderbergers, the Trilateralists, the Council on Foreign Relations, and the international bankers, the global robber barons, because they own both of the major political parties at the national level. And so those of us who are bucking the system at a lower level, running for Congress, once it's known that we are against that establishment, those global robber barons, we get no help. We get all sorts of opposition. And, you know, I was a rarity in this country as a 9/11 truth candidate for Congress who actually won the primary of a major political party. I beat a middle-of-the-road mainstream Democrat named John Kennedy. But I'll tell you, that scared the bejeebers out of the 7-term incumbent Republican congressman, he didn't take any chances. So although exit polls showed that I probably won that race by 12 points, the touchscreen electronic voting machines said otherwise, and he won. Even with that, I came closer than any Democrat in the last 14 years, because I was the only Democrat in the last 14 years to stand up and say the National Party is wrong.
You had mentioned Kucinich and Ron Paul, and there's legislation initiated now for H.R. 1207, which is audit the Fed. The Federal Reserve is a cartel of banks, private banks, which have hegemony over a monetary supply. And that cartels always eliminate competition in favor of control. That cartel supports the two-party cartel, which in turn also supports the media cartel. And in addition to that, you have elections which are controlled with basically there's not a valid counting system. So that's at the heart of our democracy, that everybody should be able to, our republic, excuse me, that we should be able to unify under that we have to recognize that there's fraud there. There's a quote by Stalin that says,
it doesn't matter who votes, it matters who counts the votes.
There we go. So Stalin had it right. I hate to say that, but so it's important. What can you say that would be the resolution to that? Because that has to be, I believe the Fed issue is a thing. But
well, for one thing, in the last half of my speech, which I'll be giving in a little bit here, you'll hear me call for elimination of our debt-based monetary system and legislation abolishing the Federal Reserve.
Yes, agreed very much so. And to the point with regard to the vote fraud, what would you believe to be the most valid direction to go with resolution?
Well, first of all, any system of voting which violates the one person, one vote constitutional requirement, and it's right in here. Sure, when they started out, blacks were only 3/5 of a person, but never mind, that's changed. Any method of voting which does not do that is unconstitutional, and therefore I believe that any method of voting which does not produce a paper ballot that can be counted, audited, and recounted as necessary is unconstitutional. So that would be number one. We have to return to paper ballots that you can count by hand. It's interesting, in some counties, including the county I live in Florida, Brevard County, you have the optical scan machines, and you fill out your ballot by hand, piece of paper, you turn it in, it goes into the machine counts it. That piece of paper is in there with the box with everybody else's piece of paper. But the legislature, the Republican legislature of Florida, in their wisdom, made it a felony to count those ballots by hand. If there is a recount, all you are allowed to do is feed those ballots through the same machine again. That's why so many of us, John, Russell, me, Hal, myself, are not running again until we get a system that allows our votes to be counted. That would be number one. In addition, we need a system that empowers third parties. We need to do away with burdensome ballot initiative requirements. We need to make voting day a federal holiday so that working people can actually vote. There are a lot of reforms that need to be done, and campaign finance reform is one of them, but it's only one of many that need.
Well, great. I appreciate your time. And what was your website again?
ThePatriots.us.
We have a variety of events that we have nationally prominent speakers, and we're not beholden to any political party. We're not beholden to anyone. When you come out to our group, if you want to come speak, we have an open mic policy generally, as long as time provides. So please come out, and we're here to provoke conversation about topics that the establishment doesn't talk about, and that the revolution won't be televised. So understand what that means. Parties do not matter. It's think tyranny and think liberty. Thank you.
Okay. Very good.